Are we ready to get started, or
Yeah, let's do
have
it.
you already started?
Oh, no, we were just chit-chatting.
You were chit-chatting. Okay. So I don't know if I have control of the ability to do this, but so I'm your MC for today. Good morning. It's 11, well, it is 11:30 East Coast time, 10:30 Central time, which is where I'm located, 9:30 Mountain time, 8:30 on the West Coast. And this is our weekly 30-minute AMCC national call for manufacturing community leaders from regions across the country and our BFFs, federal agencies, and other public, private, and nonprofit stakeholders. As I mentioned, my name is Christine Nappo. I'm with Cook County in Chicago, and we also oversee the Chicago Metro Metals Consortium, which is one of AMCC's national manufacturing communities, as well as now the Illinois Defense Manufacturing Consortium. So welcome everyone. And given our group has continued to grow, please put your name in the chat along with your affiliation. That will be easier. So that way, during our call, you can scroll through and see who's participating with us today. So as most of you know, on some Mondays, we have round robin discussions. We'll hear from you about topics relevant to strengthening our manufacturing communities. And I'm not sure exactly, Matt, if I should turn it over to you yet, or if we have other things that we need to check off this morning.
Yeah, no, I think you did a great job, Christine. Thank you. As folks know, we have, these calls are mostly run by the communities themselves, and that's been the tradition going back probably to 2014, 2015. And so thank you, Christine, and all of your team there in Chicagoland for the good work over those years, and of course for you emceeing the call this morning. Like Christine said, we have some Mondays we have a round robin, others we have a presentation. This is one of those presentation days, and this is kind of my time to have a little report out, so I'll make it real brief. You all see the AMCC update, I hope, that goes out every week. It's nice that we have our operations director, David Van Sicklen. He's helping me put that together now, so I don't have to do it solo. And it's a forum for you all to share information about what's happening. It's an efficient tactic to do that. Excuse me, as is this Monday call, this 30-minute call every Monday. And so in the last AMCC update that went out on Saturday, we put in a report out on what we did in Utah on AMCC's first roadshow. And we're in discussions with many of you around. These visits are for you, so we are excited about what we did about that in the AMCC update report that we put out. Thanks, David, for your good work in putting that together. Today, like I said, is one of those presentation days. And before we turn it over to the presentation, we do have a quick announcement from Senior Vice President from the Center for Regional Economic Competitiveness, Bob Isaacson. I put something in the AMCC update on this, Bob, but why don't you amplify that?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, man. I just wanted to highlight the July, don't we wish it was July, January 31st webinar on supply chains that we'll be having. Please take a look at the AMCC newsletter for information how to register for that. I think it looks like a very compelling discussion and presentation, so I appreciate everybody to take a look at that. Also, just wanted to highlight the SSBCI manufacturing report that many of you have heard about over the last few months. I just want to give you an update that's still undergoing some reviews. The White House has become very interested in the topic, which should really amplify the importance of manufacturing. So I'll let you know when that is expected to be released. Right now, lots of other folks are taking a look at that, and hopefully we'll see some traction in getting that published in the near future.
Great, thanks Bob. And thanks, Leif put the link to that convening in the chat. So you can check that out and sign up for that that way too. Great. So without any further ado, let me introduce Brett Schwartz he's the Associate Director at the National Association of Development Organizations. They are BFFs and good friends. We work directly with them under an EDA grant that CREC has. And of course, they have a long tradition of helping regions around the country strengthen their ecosystems for economics to include manufacturing. So we thought this would be a good idea to have Brett come on and talk about what NADO does and how we're working together and can work together, you know, for the years to come. So Brett, awesome that you're part of this network, and let me turn it over to you.
Excellent, Matt. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate the invitation to be here, and good morning to all of you. I was able to join the call 2 weeks ago when all of you were out in Utah, and this is just a really great community to be a part of, or a new part of, and I can't think of a better way to start the week off than with chatting with all of you a little bit more about our organization and what we're up to, and want to protect a little bit of time at the end for some conversation, because I'd love to hear more about how our organizations can better partner together. So let me try to share the screen here. And Matt, if I could get a thumbs up from you just to see if you're seeing the beautiful blue skies. Perfect. All right, great. All right, excellent. So again, I'm Brett Schwartz. I'm an associate director at the NADO Research Foundation. We're based in Washington, D.C. I do work remotely out in California. So this is how I'm kicking off my week here, first thing in the morning. I want to share a little bit more about our organization. So the NADO Research Foundation is the nonprofit research arm of the National Association of Development Organizations, NADO, which is a membership association of regional planning commissions, councils of governments, economic development districts, all across the country. We kind of use this umbrella term, regional development organizations, to capture all of these organizations that have very different names depending on where you are in the country, but they're all working on a wide variety of economic development and community development efforts around planning, around economic development, around transportation, around workforce, around hazard mitigation and resilience. So a wide range of areas that our members are participating in, which, as you'll see, cross-cuts nicely, I think, with the work of this group. I will say the vast majority of our members do serve small metro and rural regions. And their role is really critical in supporting the small member communities where they serve on a host of topic areas. Talk a little bit more about that in a second. Just briefly about the NADO Research Foundation, we have a handful of program areas, as I mentioned, around regional development, around transportation and infrastructure, building that kind of organizational capacity and professional development of these organizations as they continue to grow. And then, of course, like every organization, we have an awards program as well to kind of celebrate and highlight the work of our members. So I mentioned earlier, the vast majority of our members are also economic development districts, or EDDs. And you've probably heard this term before. This is a federal designation from our partners at the U.S. Economic Development Administration that serve distressed regions and communities across the country. So there is very likely an EDD that serves your region. We can talk more about that in a bit. But up on the screen, just these kind of quick snapshots here of the types of work that the districts do around identifying funding opportunities, writing and administering grants, collecting mapping data, planning, convening partners, and much more.
If people could put their mics on mute, that would be great. Thank you.
So no problem. So wide variety of work here, all in service of local communities and all promoting regional economic development. And so I think I'd say kind of the two broad areas that we and our members work on are regionalism and resilience. And I just kind of threw this quote up here on the screen about kind of, I think this is a great quote from a former executive director of one of our member organizations, Steve Etcher, that really kind of defines, kind of how we see regionalism And I'm not going to read through the quote here. You can kind of take a look, but really, I think an important role of our members is really building up this kind of regional cohesive vision while still kind of respecting kind of the local visions and goals of communities. We know regionalism is not easy. It's a lot easier to say partner together, everybody work together. We know there's competing and contrasting interests. There's limited resources and funding, but our belief and the belief of our members is that when communities come together, set a regional perspective, especially in rural and smaller places, that's really the key to success. So our members and the districts really work hard to promote this regionalism approach, which we really emphasize is not another layer of bureaucracy. It's not another layer of governments or trying to make every community look the same, but it's really, again, kind of improving the big picture here while still kind of preserving these kind of individual perspectives in the communities across the board. The other big area that our members and the districts work on is around resilience. And years ago, this was a term people were like, what are we talking about? What is this resilience? Is this sustainability? Like, what do we mean here? I think the last few years in particular, as we're emerging from the pandemic and of course the impacts of kind of larger storms and climate change across the country, I think we're all getting a crash course in what resilience and resilience planning looks like. And the districts are really on the front lines in a lot of ways, supporting their communities around all of these kind of check boxes you see here too. So a lot of folks think of resilience kind of in terms of weather-related disasters and the impacts of climate change, but we've really broadened it, as has EDA, to think about other kind of shocks and disruptions and stresses that can impact communities. And as an example here, closure of a large employer, a military base, the loss of an important industry, workforce changes, the effects of automation, all these things that you're probably grappling with in your communities and regions as well, under this large term of resilience and trying to become a more resilient region and community. So one of the ways that our members and the districts kind of plan for the future to become more resilient and to really promote that regionalism is through the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or CEDS. So hopefully this is a term or a document or a plan that you are aware of in your region, but here in a nutshell, it's really a regionally driven economic development planning document and process. I think that's really important. It's not just the document that's being created, but it's the entire process that goes into developing this plan. And really the goal is to bring together partners and stakeholders to create good jobs, diversify the economy, and spur economic growth. So all the technical stuff at the bottom, and this is a slide I use when we do some training with our members and with the districts. You don't need to know all those check marks, but to be designated as an economic development district, you have to have CEDS in place, and it needs to be updated annually with kind of a large rewrite every 5 years. So I think there's a lot of great opportunities for how the work of this cohort can cross and intersect with the work of the districts and how that's reflected in the CEDS. And Matt mentioned earlier the kind of work that we're doing with CREC, and it was great to see Bob earlier on the call as well. We're looking at ways to better kind of integrate all of these efforts, including manufacturing and international trade into the CEDS. And we've done, CREC has really led this effort around looking at all the CEDS across the country, creating this matrix that will soon be for the public to explore, to get a chance and recognize kind of how these different topic areas, including manufacturing, workforce, resilience, all across the board, are a part of the CEDS. So happy to talk more about the CEDS later on or another time. It's something I'm really passionate about. Again, it's a requirement for federal designation and maintaining that economic development district status, but we really see this as a roadmap for communities and regions to really think creatively about their future. Again, it's a document for the feds, but this is a local document that should really reflect the goals and dreams and visions of the local community. So happy again to talk about all things CEDS at another time. I also just want to briefly mention, we're really thrilled to be leading a brand new economic development district, community of practice, which is generously funded by the Economic Development Administration. This is a 5-year project where we're bringing together the districts and other partners around building capacity and strengthening that national network. And I know AMCC is leading a colleague community of practice. There's a bunch of these that are emerging around the country, all funded by EDA. And so we're looking at ways to kind of integrate this work of our community of practice with the manufacturing community of practice. There's one focused on coal-reliant communities. There's others addressing indigenous communities and opportunities there as well. So there's a whole bunch. You can visit our website to learn more about the community of practice and all these other ones that are emerging and really taking off in the new year here. And our goal, and partly I think why I'm on this call today, is to figure out ways to better kind of intersect this work across the board, which is exciting. So hope all of you can stay in touch to stay up to date on our work at NADO. We've got a free newsletter that goes out every Thursday. You can go to our website, just click and subscribe. That goes out every Thursday with news, funding opportunities, resources, webinars, all that fun stuff to stay up to date on what we're up to. So please subscribe to NADO News. And then we've got, I guess, a few minutes left here. I kind of ran through that quickly, but I really wanted to open this up and maybe loop Matt into this conversation as well. Just have this prompt up here on the screen. You know, we're trying to capture again through our project with CREC, through this emerging communities of practice, understanding ways that the work that all of you do is partnering and collaborating with districts, and how we kind of strengthen those partnerships, leverage the resources and expertise of all of our organizations, and really help continue to kind of get the word out about the work and resources that are available. So want to kind of just have last slide here is just my contact information. I'm sure we'll send that out. Love to stay in touch with you about this or any other things that might emerge. But just I'll kind of leave this up for a second and then take off the screen and would love to kind of have a conversation and hear how some of you might be working with your districts or other regional partners around your work and what's working, where there's opportunities for improvement and this. So stop sharing the screen. I'll take a sip of water here and would love to hear from all of you. So Matt, thanks again for the invite.
Brett, I have a question, a comment and question actually,
Please.
on regionalism. I mean, it's an admirable goal, but it's not an easy lift or an easy achievement. I mean, we at Cook County, we have surrounding counties, and the goal is always to attract business to your county, and there are taxes and other issues. But we've recently formed, as of just earlier this month, a regional economic development partnership where we are now going to collaborate with our collar counties and with the city of Chicago and try to go after opportunities together as a unit. So the structure is now in place for a greater partnership, but any advice you can give to actually maintain this and to, so we do stay on this path and we do try to achieve things as a unit. What advice can you give? Or maybe you come speak to us. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's great. No, it's a great update. Thanks for sharing that, Christine. Yeah, this is not easy. It's simple for me to kind of put up a slide with a definition and say this is how it works. You're working with all sorts of communities, elected officials, stakeholders, businesses, residents. So there's a lot of partners in play. I'd say one of the ways that we've seen regions really thrive are those that don't wait until the end to be kind of celebrate and share the work that's happening. I think it's easy to wait until you've reached the finish line of a planning process or a project, or receive funding, and then kind of make that big announcement. I think kind of celebrating these kind of smaller victories as you move along through the process, and that can be kind of funding opportunities that emerge. That can be celebrating the work of your partners, but you really need to kind of have that kind of core backbone organization in place to lead it and take ownership of it. That backbone organization doesn't necessarily do all of the work and shouldn't do all of the work. The role of the economic development districts is really, I think, kind of quarterback and kind of foster those partnerships and make sure that there's that kind of vision moving forward. But really the goals of the SEDS plan and the goals of these kind of regional development plans are really implemented through the partners. So I think you need to have that kind of strong organization in place. Smaller committees and stakeholder groups are really valuable to be able to report out to the groups. But it's all the work that I'm sure all of you are doing, kind of similar to this. Standing meetings, I give Matt a lot of credit holding a weekly meeting in place, kind of rain or shine, it seems, is really important, and it brings folks together, and it kind of continues to build that cohesion. So probably not the best answer, Christine, for you here, no. but the fact that you're kind of making that decision to go forward. The one other thing I would say, and this is, as I mentioned, the vast majority of our members are kind of rural, kind of smaller metros. To make sure that all of the regions see themselves reflected and respected, and kind of part of the process. It's very easy for kind of the core metro or even the county seats, to kind of dominate the discussions or funding opportunities or that. So really ensuring that all voices have a seat at the table, they see themselves reflected through the process, and that people, there's a kind of visiting and kind of touring throughout the region is so critical. So could ramble on, but thanks for the question and happy to chat.
Yeah, no, it's good. And Nancy put a question in the chat, which, I was thinking going through the list of folks that are on the call. I see Trish Kelly is on the call. There was the SEDS in your area, Trish, that you guys wove in with some of your existing initiatives. I don't know if you wanted to speak to how that worked for you guys in the Sacramento area.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And nice to meet you, Brett. I hope to connect with you here in California. We have a 6-county region, and we have actually 2 rural economic development districts within those 2 rural counties. And so we created an umbrella regional SEDS, and then we built up, integrated the priorities from those 2 more sub-regional into a broader impact. And so the other 2 counties don't have a district. We have a current grant from EDA to look at the possibility of forming a district. But right now, the momentum just seems to be to keep the broader 6-county SEDS as a platform. And it's nesting now as a framework for this new state initiative, the Community Economic Resilience Fund. And so we're going to be the administrator for that program. And the state is requiring that those initiatives, there are going to be 13 regions across the state, that they align with the SEDS. And so we're integrating that and about to launch that. And then our SEDS is based on the industry cluster analysis. So we have 3 major sectors, and they have manufacturing in all of them. So I'm not sure if Dean is on the call from our manufacturing group, but that's how it worked. We're trying to integrate. We've built the process over the years. So Christine, we're love to talk with you if that works. We have rural, urban, and suburban. We have a whole mix. So, but regionalism, like you're saying, Brett, is challenging, but can be very rewarding. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, no, thanks, Trish. I just thought that would be, a good example to generate other ideas. It's not easy. And I know, Trish, you guys have really, had a challenge with it. Brett, I see we have Kevin Ross from Accenture on the call, and we had a great presentation from Kevin about private players in these kinds of initiatives. And it begged the question in my mind, how, if at all, are private partners, working with EDDs in these SEDS? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it certainly varies. Each of the districts working on the SEDS has a SEDS committee, which is meant to, and EDA kind of has a kind of broad opportunity for kind of who should participate in it, really, of like reflecting the interests of the business interests of the community and the region. So it's not, there's no specific, how many people from each sector have to be a part of the SEDS committee. But we certainly do have, there's lots of, private industry, small business owners, others, just even beyond, K-12, higher ed, philanthropy. So it's really, this, SEDS process and the regionalism process, again, not driven by one organization, but recognizing, and I see some great comment from Ben there in the chat as well about the opportunities that are available here. You have a strong, cross section of stakeholders, and continuously asking who else needs to be at the table. I think it's very easy to get kind of trapped in these are our usual partners. This is what we do. It's worked in the past. We'll keep pushing it forward. I think there's a real opportunity to keep saying, who needs to be here? How can we kind of expand this and be more inclusive, and ensure that all voices in the community are reflected. So small business owners, private industry, and others have a big role to play in that process, especially around workforce. There's a huge data component to the SEDS, and partnering with businesses to kind of get that information about workforce, about training needs. The intersection there with education and apprentice and other opportunities. It's really endless. And so we want to, kind of have this space to be able to have those conversations. And again, it's not a plan that's created and then trying to bring in the partners. The partners are part of it, from the get-go.
Great. Thank you, Brett. Other questions? I want to make sure we have 5 minutes left. So I want, let's just stop here. People, you can put your questions in the chat. We have Sally Rood from the Governors Association, National Governors Association. And begs the question in my mind, what you guys are doing, Sally, to put out, information about economic development districts to state leaders.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. We put quite a bit of information in our biweekly newsletter that goes out to our economic development community here at our economic development network, I should say, here at NGA, for starters. And that includes, for example, things like what we just were talking about, how they can do a better job of coordinating with their communities to make sure that they have proper strategies in place across the states, and a whole variety of, we also have now are posting major web pages on each of the major pieces of legislation that have come out recently, starting with ARPA, IIJA, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but those are all pretty crucial for states these days, and they're spending quite a bit of time strategizing on how they can contribute to make sure those get implemented properly across the country.
Great, Sally. Thank you. And so, Brett, there's going to be a lot of regional leaders that are like, I don't even know what a SEDS is. What is this EDD thing? This is like, so what this convening was great. We have this recorded, people can share and all of that. Your website undoubtedly is a great place to start. Like who are the people that they should contact, to talk, to have conversations? Because it takes a while, I think. There's been a lot of work in a lot of places, but a lot of places don't have a lot of work that's been done, right? And so we got to bring people. What's the easiest on-ramp for folks to get into understanding these existing opportunities?
Yeah, great question, Matt. And I'll put myself out as a point of contact. If hopefully all of you know who the EDs are that serve your region. If you don't, no problem. Feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to make those introductions. We're currently building out a new kind of interactive map on our website where you'll just kind of hover over your region, click on it. You'll be able to get contact information and connect easily there. But please see us as that connection to these regional partners. If there's nothing else you take away from the conversation today, just know that there are these districts on the ground in your regions providing assistance to small communities and partners, and they're a wonderful resource and have great connections at the state and federal level as well. And so we're all kind of rowing in this kind of larger kind of economic development ecosystem, and just want to make sure that you recognize that the districts can be a key partner in your work and vice versa. I think there's lots of opportunities, and it was raised in the chat as well too, how we can kind of build these kind of connections. But please stay in touch. I hope to join more of these calls in the future, because there's a lot of opportunities here as well. So if you have any questions or want to learn more, or just have a quick intro to kind of who the key stakeholders are in your region that you might be connecting with in the EDD space, I'm happy to do that. So there's one quick question. Yeah, are there tribal SEDS? Yes, there are tribal communities that also do the SEDS as well for EDA and other partners. So check out eda.gov/SEDS and you can get some more information. Hopefully I can drop that in the chat too. But I know we're at the end of the hour here, but Matt, thanks again for the introduction to this group. I'm looking forward to partnering with you. We're just getting started, really. This is really the beginning of, I think, what'll be a really great partnership between our organizations at kind of the national level, but of course on the ground that are doing the work day in and day out. So with that, turn it back to you, Matt, and thanks again.
Thank you, Brett and NADO. Yeah, I think you're right. This is the beginning of a much needed partnership, and super excited about next steps on that. So thanks for that. Next Monday, we're going to have a presentation by the California MEP, Jim Watson, about cybersecurity. Super excited about having Jim come on next Monday's call. But that's it for today. Let me turn it back to you, Christine, to close out the meeting. Oh, she might have dropped off or she's on mute. Well, that closes out
I
the meeting.
am, no, I'm on mute. I'm sorry. So thank you, Brett. Thank you for all the valuable information. And thank you, Matt, for bringing us together every week to discuss and to share our ideas. And in the meantime, have a great week.
Thanks, all.
Thank you.